Hello, welcome to Technical Founders. My name is Carlos Lara, software engineer and entrepreneur, and in this video we'll be examining the 4 types of startup markets. Now, there are 4 types of startups, each of them needing a very different set of requirements to succeed. So the first type is startups entering an existing market. You are in an existing market if your product offers higher performance than what is currently offered in the market. Higher performance can be a product or service that runs faster, does something better, or substantially improves on what is already on the market. Here, the users on the market are known, but so are the competitors. In fact, competitors define the market. The basis of competition is therefore all about the product and the product features. That's the first type. The second type of startup is startups creating a new market. A new market results when a company creates a large customer base that couldn't do something before. This happens because of true innovation, creating something brand new. For example, dramatically lower cost, creating a new class of users, or because a product solves availability, scale, convenience, or location issues in a way that no other product has. In a new market, your product features are at first irrelevant because there are no competitors. Well, except other pesky startups. However, the users and the market are undefined and unknown. If you are creating a new market, your problem is not how to compete with other companies on product features, but how to convince a set of customers that your vision is not just a hallucination. Creating a new market requires you to understand whether there is a large customer base that couldn't do this before, whether these customers can be convinced they want or need the new product, and whether customer adoption occurs in your lifetime. It also requires rather sophisticated thinking about financing. For example, how you manage the cash burn rate during the adoption phase, and how you manage and find investors who are patient and have deep pockets. And that would be the second type, startups and creating a new market. The third type is startups resegmenting an existing market as a low-cost entrant. So in low-cost resegmentation, you ask the following question. Are there customers at the low end of an existing market who will buy good enough performance if they could get it at a substantially lower cost? If you truly can be a low cost and profitable provider, entering existing markets at this end is fun, as incumbent companies tend to abandon low margin businesses and head up market. So that would be the third type of startup, resegmenting an existing market as a low cost entrant. And the fourth type of startup is startups resegmenting an existing market as a niche player. So niche resegmentation looks at an existing market and asks the following question. Would some part of this market buy a new product designed to address their specific needs, even if it costs more? Is worse performance in an aspect of the product irrelevant to this niche? So niche resegmentation attempts to convince customers that some characteristic or dimension of the product is radical enough to change the rules and shape of an existing market. Here, you attempt to reframe how people think about the products within an existing market. By the way, this is actually the most common type of market for new startups, but it's also the trickiest actually. The reason is because it needs a long-term product plan that uses low cost as market entry, so you can get in at a low cost and eventually reaching profitability and heading up market and growing. So you start, when you resegment an existing market as a niche player, you start small, you want to grab that market dominated, and then you eventually want to become profitable and start heading up market. So that's the most common type of startup. Now, this strategy does face entrenched competitors who will fiercely defend their profitable markets. It requires skilled and agile positioning of the new product to redefine the market. And actually, there's an extraordinary book called Blue Ocean Strategy, which provides a framework for discovering untapped market potential and break away from direct competition. We will examine blue ocean strategy in future videos. Now, it is actually a fallacy to believe that the strategy and tactics that work for one startup should be appropriate for another. That's because market type changes everything that a startup does. For example, how you evaluate customer needs and customer adoption rate, how the customer understands his or her needs, and how you position the product to the customer. Market type also changes the market size, as well as how you launch the product into the market. Now, in this table here, I've actually drawn or written some of the variables to consider for your startup when you're figuring out what type of market your startup is in. So you have the customer needs, adoption rate, the problem recognition, positioning, market, so market size, cost of entry, launch type, competitive barriers. All of these variables vary and depend on the type of market that your startup is in. And for sales, of course, distribution channel, margins, sales cycle. And for finance, of course, time to profitability, ongoing capital, etc. So there's all these different variables for your startup to consider, and they're all different depending on the type of market that your startup is in. Now, as the company follows the customer development process, the importance of market type grows in each step. So in the last video, we discussed briefly the 4 steps to the Epiphany, the customer development steps. So during the first step, customer discovery, all startups, regardless of market type, leave the building and talk to customers. In step 2, customer validation, the differences between type of startup emerge as sales and positioning strategies diverge. Now, by the third step, customer creation, the difference between startup market types is acute, as customer acquisition and sales strategy differ dramatically between different types of markets. And lastly here, I've again written another diagram where we actually compare the different types of market and the variables. So for example, for customers, you have for an existing market, well, the customers are existing, they're already there. It's existing customers. For a resegmented market, they're also existing. It's an existing market, but you're resegmenting it, either as low-cost entrant or as a niche player. In a new market, they're actually new customers, new users. If it's really true, like radical innovation, people may have never used anything like it before. And then, of course, we have customer needs. In existing market, customers really care about performance. Mostly, that's the main variable to consider in the existing market. In resegmented market, so in the low cost example, of course, cost is the most important customer need in this case, the cost of the product or service. And then for a niche, for as a niche player, resegmented as a niche would be the perceived need. So it's depending how much they actually need this product or service will determine the customer need. So their cost would not be as important as the actual perceived need. And then in a new market, it's simplicity and convenience. These would be the main 2 things to consider for a new market. And then you can actually pause the video and take a look at these more closely and just examine. We have also performance and the difference between. So in an existing market, obviously the only way to succeed if you're entering an existing market is to have a product that's better or faster or both. And then we have, and these other, for the other market types, we have the appropriate performance key considerations. Competition, existing market, again, existing incumbents, existing competitors. Same for resegmented market. And for new market, there may not be any competitors if it's radical innovation, but as it happens all the time whenever you're creating a new market, at the same time when you're starting this company, there's other startups that have a similar idea and want to go after this new market. So your main competition will be basically other startups in this case. And then the risks, of course, well, in an existing market, the risks are, well, the competitors, the entrenched competitors who own the market, and you're trying to take share away from them, and they're going to try to prevent you from doing that. And for a resegmented market, So you have also the competitors, but for the low cost especially, and for the niche, you have that your strategy fails, that the niche strategy fails. That would be the main risk. If for a new market, of course, market adoption. If it's something very, very radical, it may take a very long time for it to be adopted. If it's like too ahead of its time, the product or service, it may actually take a long time. And if it's ever adopted, right? So that would be the main risk, the actual adoption of the market, because it's a question mark, it's a new market. So that's something that you don't know. So those would be the 4 types of startup markets. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, please leave them at the bottom. Also, please subscribe so you're the first to be notified when the videos come out. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.